At a time of deep division in today's society, we must come together for humanity's sake. On Can We Talk 360, we strive to stimulate an authentic conversation on issues that affect all of us in an environment of tolerance. I am Eugene Pettis, attorney and community servant. Tune into our discussion to foster a greater awareness of yourself and others. Let's discover how there is strength in our differences and an abundance of possibilities when we stand together as one humanity. Welcome to Can We Talk 360. I'm excited today to have two experts in the field of AI, and more particularly AI as it interacts with the education of our students. I have with us Dr. Ruzycki from the University of Florida and Mr. Hermes Abrantes from the Broward County Public Schools. I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves. They have so much and so many credentials, so I ask that they give you a little taste of their educational, professional background, and then we're going to get into a topic that I believe everyone's going to enjoy. We've all heard the term AI. Hopefully by the end of this podcast, you'll have a better understanding of its abilities, applications, and its impact in our everyday lives. Dr. Ruzycki, introduce yourself to our audience.
Hey, I'm Dr. Ruzycki, and I teach at the University of Florida. I'm in the Department of Materials Science and Engineering in the Herbert Wertheim College of Engineering. My PhD is actually in physics, solid-state physics, but my background is chemistry and education. I have both a chemistry degree and an education degree, and I've been active in the teaching and learning of physics for over 25 years. Hermes?
Oh, thank you. And thank you for having us, Eugene. I'm Hermes Abrantes. I am teacher of both cybersecurity and AI at Nova High School in Broward County Public Schools, where we have almost 200 cybersecurity students, and we just started the first AI Academy in Broward County Public Schools at Nova High School, and we have nearly 40 students on that, and they are doing amazing things.
That's awesome. Again, welcome to both of you. Most people have heard the term AI, but beyond its superficial understanding, I think we unknowingly, most of people utilize AI in so many different ways in our daily lives. Educate us. Where is AI popping up in our lives? I know it's in our cell phones, for example. What are some of the other areas of AI that people are interacting with that may not know it's really backed by AI?
Well, I think one of the most obvious examples is when you go to a call center or you're using a service platform like Amazon to return something. You're probably not going to speak to a human. You're probably going to speak to an AI based chatbot. And so that, public service chatbots are probably, and marketing are probably some of the most wide uses of chatbots in our everyday lives. In addition, all of the packages that Amazon sends out, there are AI systems that are shutting those packages and ensuring those packages are going where they need to go. So we see a lot of AI and machine learning in things like manufacturing and logistics as well.
We're going to get deeper into the education, but Hermes, in your role in education here in Broward County, how do you interface with it?
Yes. So AI started, in October, November 2022 with ChatGPT. That's where it exploded. Not where it started, but where it exploded to the students. And the first thing we saw was students find out, hey, I can write my papers on it. And of course, we did not welcome that very much. We want the students to think for themselves. Everything we do is about problem solving, creative thinking. And so what we have been doing is teaching students how AI works underneath the hood, and that has been the program that Dr. Ruzycki's group put together, and that's where we are implementing. But also there's one thing I want to share with you. Our AI students put a tutoring plan for math students who are struggling. And we welcomed math students and shared with them how they could use with prompt engineering, how they could use the AI tools to help them, in particular areas of math that they were having issues with. So AI can be very powerful in those areas. So we've seen that students are starting to say, oh, it can help me where I have difficulty, not help me cheat, but help me get better, help me improve.
That's a very good point, and I know we're going to get into some of that in this conversation. AI is advancing, from my impression, at light speed. I mean, it's really moving fast, being even more integrated into every aspect of our society. How do we cultivate a society with the skills necessary to navigate this future where AI will play such a significant role?
Yeah, and I think what we need to do is think about a broad AI literacy. And people generally think to understand AI, you have to be a computer programmer. But really, there's two tracks to AI. There's a designer track, which is the understanding of AI, how it's designed, what the different systems are, how they're put together. So sort of like a paralegal. A paralegal can understand all the aspects of the law, but it's not themselves a lawyer. They don't put that final package together. And then there are the developers, and the developers are the people who are doing the coding, and they're doing the hard wiring per se of the different pieces that go into the AI system. So within AI, we have the designers, we have the developers, and then we have the users. And I think we have to educate people at all levels of AI. So, say, for example, your firm wants to design an AI system that will help you go through a lot of your records. Well, you have a designer that would design it, but then you have a developer you would hire to program that. And then you have your end users, your stakeholders, who would be your lawyers and your staff that would be using those systems.
One of the thoughts that I had in preparing for our discussion is that we're going to be focusing so much on students from K to 12 and from college all the way through their doctoral programs. There's a generation out there that came before that are not as adept with AI. And as we go back generations, the further back we go, the more concerned, fearful that people are. A lot of these kids in Broward County and everywhere are raised by parents who don't know AI, grandparents who have no clue of what AI is. How do we address that gap, if you will, of knowledge on AI to a broader spectrum of just the kids who are in academics today to the greater society that's being impacted by it? Hermes, do you have
Yeah,
a
I
thought
think
on
we need
that?
to do a better job of educating people more broadly.
Mhm.
We need to be having webinars. For example, I did a talk in Palm Beach to like a societal club, and after they spoke to me, I thought, well, really, it would be great to write like a little article for a news journal, and you could call it AI Minute, and it would just explain one AI concept to the general public. Could we have like webinars for seniors or at senior centers where we talk through these things like large language models and how they can be used to catfish or to harm people through the different kinds of deep fakes? So, at the university, but also as experts, we need to be doing more pro bono work out in our public to help people broadly understand AI. And I do think that, especially with our parents and seniors, we should be talking to them more and more about AI issues.
Uh, are there ways available? I know at the University of Florida, we have, obviously a huge AI effort. We have HyperGator 2.0 and maybe up to 3.0. We have a new one coming online. Um, is there a way of, I'm just thinking of your previous comment, of making a program available to senior citizens centers where, the program is done one time, but it's available for others to review and tap in to be educated on it? Do we have that capability?
We do have that capability. We have to have the willingness to do that work and have an understanding that that is an immediate need that potentially we should address, both positive and negative. But it's not just the seniors, it's the parents, because we see a lot of school systems that are really early adopters and they're bringing a lot of AI into the classroom without really telling the parents about what data it could collect, or even the school district understanding what data may be collected. And so I think caution is advised, and people need to build up a literacy or knowledge base before some of these decisions are made. And right now, not everyone has that knowledge, and we do need to make knowledge more equitable around AI systems.
I have a story to tell on that, if I may. So
Sure.
my students, when they came in, we had the first AI Academy, and the students I was coming in, and I was thinking they would all be gung-ho about AI. And when I started talking about AI, because I'm very pro AI, like you guys are, and I would say 2/3 of the students were very negative. And I had to take a step back because they were afraid of AI. And that goes back to what you're saying, the parents, the grandparents, because they don't know what is under the hood, what is it that they're dealing with. So one thing that happened is we start talking about prompt engineering, which is one of the things that, Dr. Ruzycki's group put together is, how to prompt, and how to ask the questions to the engine. And one of the things students found out by themselves is, tell me what I can do with you. So you can go to ChatGPT or Perplexity or Gemini and say, what can you do for me? I am a ninth grader. I am 14 years old. I am learning X and I'm having difficulty with Y. Can you help me? And once you find out that that is a conversational machine that's just being trained on everything that's on the internet, basically, then you can start interacting with it and you become more comfortable with it and you learn from it if you approach in the right way. And I had students that you probably have heard about agentic AI, that you can do travel plans, that they were going to do a travel in the Caribbean. And they had several, and they worked with mom. Mom wanted to hit these islands, and there wasn't a cruise for this island. And they went, on one of the agentic AIs, I think it was Operator, and they started putting together a trip, and they said they saved money. I was like, okay, then teach me. Something like that. But so if we can get the conduit like this, I think it's very powerful. The tool itself can teach about itself, and that's the power that's hidden in AI too.
Dr. Ruzycki, you said and I'm paraphrasing, there's significant capabilities here, but we have to have the will to do it. Is that a will on the university level in general, not just our university, universities in general, schools in general? Where is it that we have to get that buy-in to really upscale, if you will, and do a broader reach of offering these skills, science, availability of AI to the broadest spectrum as we can? Where does the buy-in have to take place, and where are the weak spots?
I think there has to be a collective pressure, you know what I mean? And I think back to when people first started using the internet and computers, and then there was a little bit of mayhem because of the internet. And then people said, we need to teach digital literacy, and we need to teach it to toddlers, and we need to teach it in schools, and we need to teach it to the elderly. And there were programs made. There's some very good programs out there for digital literacy. But broadly, AI literacy should, in a way, fold under digital literacy or electronic literacy. And we should be developing programs or working with some of these providers that are already out there. And there are some out there that are trying to do that, but their market may be just high school. But there's almost no market for the elderly, honestly. And they are our fastest growing population, right? And so we do need to think about that. At the University of Florida, we are the land grant institution in the state of Florida. And as such, our mission is to serve the people of Florida. And I think we need to remind ourselves that that is one of our missions, and then think about how can we bring in the journalism school and the business school and the engineering school, and how can we all contribute together to create maybe a series of webinars that gets hosted to go out. Now, we do a lot of webinars, and we, primarily for teachers, but if non-teachers or parents come in, we're happy to have them. But I do think it is something that the university could do, and I hope that gets presented to the university in a way that the university sees that it is also its mission. And certainly it would benefit the people within the state of Florida.
You know, Chris Malachowski from NVIDIA is on the executive committee with me, and obviously the donor of the computer that we've so much enjoyed and been thankful for. And he's always saying it's underutilized. You'll have to use it more. You have to move faster. You know, technology changes so quickly. There's no question we have the capacity. There's a lot more capacity in that computer. I believe the university, our University of Florida, has to understand the benefit of that type of outreach. I mean, you could become the source that helps engineer the state on AI. And it's not just enough to do it at the collegiate level or the professional level, because 75% of our society aren't in that level. It's the people that don't go to the universities. It's the people that, you know, don't have access. And I think it's really important that we utilize that capability. I say for the least of us, and that takes me, Dr. Ruzycki, to one of my questions. I've studied some of the great work that you're doing. And how when we had just regular computers, there was always the digital divide discussion, that there were communities that just didn't have the internet, therefore no resources to get online and enjoy the benefits of what learning capabilities I had. COVID really awakened us when there was no in-person learning. I know Broward County gave computers to almost every student, if not every student, so that the education could continue. The Biden administration took out digital efforts to take into all communities, rural, etc. I don't know where that stands today. But how do we make sure that AI is not going to increase the divide between social, economic, race, etc., that every child, the one that has nothing at home, how does that kid have a shot at learning with this transition into AI?
Yeah, I think that's a real issue, and the digital divide still exists. And COVID only exacerbated it because we saw students go home in districts with laptops, but they didn't have enough cell phone signal to even use a hotspot if they got a hotspot from their district. It wasn't enough, right? And then there were families where they have 5 or 6 kids around a kitchen table all trying to run class at the same time, and it's really an issue. And it's going to be worse with AI because AI currently, most of these large AI systems that when we think about AI is everything from simple rules-based devices that just do one thing to these large language models that talk to you. But it's large language models people are very, very interested in right now because they do provide a lot of information and they are a conduit that we hear a lot about. They are operating at just enormous loss, enormous loss. And if they weren't funded by some of the largest tech giants in the world, they would not still be operating. But eventually, they're going to have to make money back. And this is why we're seeing these subscription services. And if you're not paying $20 a month or $20 a week, you're going to be paying with your data. So maybe I'm going to offer it to you, Eugene, for free, but I'm going to collect your data. And we know that communities that are under-resourced are often mined for their data. And that has happened many times in our past history. And we have to be mindful about like people coming into communities and saying, hey, we're going to give you these access to AI. And all we want to do is just collect some data on you. And then people aren't truly understanding what that means. We give away our data on our phones every day in millions of ways. And then later on, we're going to find out that people were somehow exploited for their data instead of being paid fairly. And this has happened in healthcare data. It's happened in many areas. And I do think it's something that we have to think about and we have to purposely create policies and plan for. So how do we make these things accessible to everyone, and how are they equitable in terms of the data they collect on people?
What and the data issue, I have a new cell phone, Apple 16, and in putting back the various apps that I dropped it in some water on vacation a few months ago. You don't realize how lost you are for the couple of days without the phone. But everybody wants access to your data. It's constantly trying to, can we track?
Right.
Can we do this? And it gives you the option only when used, or all the time, or never. And I don't know what most people do, but I'm afraid of letting them be in my data all the time. Probably shouldn't let them, but some of them you need it if it's navigational. They need to know where you are and to give you directions, but they don't need to be in there at all times. They want to get into your photographs. That's all sorts of risks that we have if they want to get into your photographs. And when you were speaking, Dr. Ruzycki,
That's right.
It flashed in my mind, nothing free is good. There's something behind it. If they're giving it to you for free, there's something they're getting out of it. And in this instance, it's the data that they're trying to collect. I wanted
Correct.
to highlight that Hermes is not just the head of the AI Academy at Nova High School, but it's the award-winning AI program at Nova High School. Recently, he was telling me before we came online that several of his students went and won the KPMG, one of the big four accounting firms, contests. And they won first place, which was the goal, and got $5,000 as a part of their award, and won a couple of more and got another $5,000. So that's a very successful trip to pick up $10,000 during the course of the competition. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so AI, like Dr. Ruzycki said, there is a lot of investment in AI right now, in interest. And one of the sources of all these creative ideas are the young students, right? They come up with different things, and things are meaningful for their generations, right? Gen Z, Gen Alpha. And so they're all different platforms out there today, like Kaggle, NoPro, even the American Film Institute. There's everywhere they're putting competitions, they're based in AI. And one of the things that we'll be doing, I think, very well at Broward County is to track the students towards success in their careers, right? So we taught students, who is putting this together is KPMG. What are they strong on in the financial sector, for example? So they went for ideas to help people in financial literacy using AI. So it's almost like having an AI agent with you that will go everywhere you go and will say, hey, do you really need that subscription? Or, you were trying to buy this at this store, but I have it cheaper at that other store, and I can send it to you by tomorrow. So it would just be this way of freeing people up from all this worry and mundane thinking of day-to-day financial lives. They can make simpler decisions and better decisions. And this came from a group of 4 students from 9, 10, 11, and 12 grades, all grades they were. And this is what AI is also allowing the students to think creatively, because they did use AI to fine-tune their ideas, to present their ideas, but at the end of the day, they presented it, so it had to be their idea. It wasn't created by a generative AI large language model. So that's, to me, is an example of using AI to aid your thinking, not to replace it. And that was amazing. And they did it at several other times. Several other students did it as well. And it's just a very competitive and fun environment.
I have 2 questions. One follow-up with you, Hermes, is has Broward County Public Schools sought to expand AI Academy, as it's called at Nova, into other public schools?
Yes. So there is our career and technical education department has been really on top of it, and they are expanding. There's training going on this summer for other schools to to be also have the AI Academy using what Dr. Ruzycki and University of Florida put together, creative following the Florida Department of Education AI Foundation's curriculum. So yes, it's a big push, and I think it would be very successful.
And it's just critical because with debate initiative, it was at every school. You know, we put it in all the high schools, the middle schools, and many of the elementary schools. It's critical that we do not allow this AI, what's the word I'm looking for? This whole new paradigm that we're going through to just be in select communities. And it's so easy to happen. There are schools out west that have more parental involvement, more tax dollars in the community, that sometimes these great ideas naturally flow there. But it's critical that the child in the poorest of neighborhood here in Broward County, who could be a diamond in the rough if given the opportunity, is also given that, because what we've seen is kids from wherever they come from, when given the opportunity, they all learn it. And they learn it effectively. So, you know, I think that's really important. And since you're obviously one of the people that's really pushing in the county, I think that's really important
I agree 100%.
Committed to it. The second point you just mentioned of using it as an instructive tool, but not to do your work. We have that issue, not just in schools and colleges. We have that a problem in professions. I saw a couple of months ago where a lawyer had used AI to do some research, submitted it as the AI gave him, and the AI made up cases that the judge caught that didn't exist.
Hallucinations.
And he went in proudly and submitted everything AI did, and it was embarrassing to say the least. There'll come a time where that'll be a penalty of sanctions, suspensions, disbarment. I think now they're going light on it, but that people want to take the easy way out and don't want to just use it to get me in the right area to do deeper dive, but they want it to do all the work. And it's probably in every field. There's always going to be somebody to try to misuse it. How are we dealing with that at the university?
That's why we think they're.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
By educating students, because when students understand the system and the limits of the system, then they tend to use it correctly. But remember, the people who are trying to sell you AI, they're like car salesmen. So they're going to sell you something that you think is like a Porsche, but it's really a Hyundai. And so it's up to you to understand that this is what it's capable of. And as a lawyer or as an engineer, even as a student, we have to understand our own domain knowledge well enough to know when a machine is not telling us the truth. These machines are designed to return information and seem convincing. And this is why we ourselves have to check the machine. Now, there are systems, and I'm surprised that there's not one in law yet, where you take a corpus of materials and the machine is only trained on that corpus of materials. So that means it doesn't have a lot of random information in it. And so it should return better values, not always perfect, but better. But currently, most of these large language models we're operating on are trained from everything they can scrape off the internet in English. So that means Reddit posts. That means random things about squirrels in parking lots. I don't know. And yet we're expecting it to do our job as a lawyer or engineer. That's on us. And we need to educate people about the limits of the machine to return anything that we think is high quality. It may be sufficient for a middle school student, but is it sufficient for an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer? I don't think so.
You both talked about when computers first came out, everybody was, scared of them. There's some fear, and it's the more you participate in AI, obviously it subsides. But how do we reach the message that you are bringing, Dr. Ruzycki, across the state of Florida. You talked about the land grant university, 67 counties. We have offices in every one of them. What's being done at UF to try to push this out across the state?
Yeah, our approach is working with schools and districts, but we've also recently partnered with 4-H and IFAS to try to do more training of IFAS agents across the different districts. We just did a little boot camp with ag agents about AI. And I think that we need to be developing and designing educational programs, whether they're webinars that get recorded and posted up at UF. And with AI, we'll have to keep recording them for a few years because everything changes quickly. But that should be and is part of our mission to educate the population of our state.
One of the things I know you have a passion for working for disadvantaged high schools and students in order to increase fluency of science, math, and technology. Tell us about the program. When I heard you speak at the University of Florida, I think it was back in April of this year, and I may be recalling it a little off, but you were basically able to put a camp in a box and take it to certain school districts, and with some instruction, they could roll out an AI program or coding program during the summer. I remember it being very inexpensive for what I think the skill set that you're teaching them. Tell us about that, please.
Yeah, so we often find that students don't have access to high quality after school programs, right? Because either they're living in areas where their parents are working 1 to 2 jobs, or their schools just don't have these programs in place. And not everyone can come up to UF to have a UF experience, right? That takes a certain level of empowerment. So what we did was we created camps, and we do call them camps in a box, with funding from our foundational donor, Arnie Goldberg, who is a UF graduate and worked for PayPal and now works for Google. And Arnie Goldberg gave us enough funding to be able to set up the program and start the ball rolling and try to reach out to students in their district. So what we do is we partner with the school district, and the school district provides a site. They help us provide a teacher. We either pay for the teacher or they pay for the teacher. We have a set of equipment they use. We either loan the equipment, or if the district has funding, they pay for the equipment. We train an undergraduate UF student to go down and be a mentor in that camp, and we try to partner students who came out of those schools. So if we did school in Broward County, we would try to find a UF student from Broward that was home for the summer, and we would train that student. That gives that college student power to give back to their community. And additionally, the students can see a successful young student from their area that has gone on to UF. Now, what we teach in these camps is critical thinking and system thinking through engineering design, computational thinking, and build outs. And what we do is, Arnie Goldberg didn't want these camps to be boring programming courses. So when the kids come in, they learn about this little thing called a microbit. They get to play with this microbit. It's a little microcontroller. They learn how it works. And the first thing they do is they build a pet for each other. So they're learning about engineering design thinking. They're learning about stakeholder analysis, right? All the same skills that a lawyer would need. They need to solve these problems in thinking through things clearly and creating an action plan. And so after they build out their pet, they then get an engineering design challenge that they build out as part of a team. So they're learning collaborative teamwork, they're learning communication skills, they're learning negotiation skills, and then they do a presentation, which is almost like an entrepreneurial pitch at the end about the product the engineering product they've designed. And we have little things like they have to have an ambulance might be going up to a red light. They have to create a sensor that will change the color of a stoplight if an ambulance is coming through. And they can actually build this out with engineering tools. They have a little cooler that has to heat or cool medicines on demand. And so they create a cooler that will do that. And these are middle school students doing these beautiful design works. And so it costs about $10,000 to run a camp for 20 students in a district, including the cost of the teacher, the cost of lunch, right? So this empowers students, and it also empowers the district teacher, because now the teacher is upskilled. They know how to use the technology. We give it to them in many cases, and then they have it to use in their classroom all year long. And with that same funding, we're able to run after school programs so that that goes all year long. We actually got an email one year from a parent whose student had been in the program, gone to the summer camp, and were in the after school program in the fall. And this, I think this was either Palm Beach or Broward area. And the mother said, I just want to write you that, I was asking my son what they wanted for their holiday present. And all they wanted for their holiday present was a UF engineering t-shirt. And
Right.
and the mother said, "Don't you want like a game or something?" He's like, "No, I'm going to go to UF and be an engineer." And so that's the aspiration that we want to see in these students, is that they can see themselves in UF and in these roles as scientists and engineers. And it could be anywhere, but the idea is that they feel confident and they feel prepared and they're ready to move on in their careers. And so that's the power of our little Goldberg camps.
That's awesome. How long is the summer program?
So what we do is we have a bunch of summer programs because we want things to be scalable for people. So we work with districts. Some districts only operate on 4 days in the summer. So maybe they want to do a 2-week half-day camp. So we design 40-hour camps.
Let's
They can
stop
do
for a
them
second.
in one
Let's stop.
week.
Let me stop you for a
Uh-huh.
second, because I'm losing you. Your signal is going out. It's saying it's weak, and you just blacked
Oh,
out.
okay.
It came back. Um,
Okay. All right, let's
so,
restart that then.
okay,
Am I back?
you're back. You're back.
Okay.
And you have my question. You remember my question.
Yeah, I do.
How long is the program? And you were telling me that there are many different camps. I'm
Yep.
looking for the one that's the $10,000 cost that you were just talking about.
Yeah, so all these camps, all of our middle school and high school camps that are 40 hours cost about the same money, all about $10,000. And we can deliver them in many different ways. Some districts want to do 2 weeks at a half day, and some districts want to do a week camp from like 8 to 4. So depending on what the district needs are, we'll run camps longer or we'll run camps shorter. Now, in addition to the first camp, the Goldberg camp, we've created additional camps for students that want to come back for the second year. So we have an advanced Goldberg camp where the students actually program machine learning. And then we also have some pure programming classes. We've gotten some sponsorship from MathWorks, which creates MATLAB. And we actually created a sports and music data analytics camp for students using MATLAB. And they find the next great Beyonce or the next great Maradona, or the next great football or baseball player, depending on whatever they want. So we teach them how to do sports and data analytics. So we have several camps. We also have some 10-week camps that we've designed for trio programs that we make available for free. And so we want students to have access to high quality camps. So we'll develop camps depending on whatever a district's needs are.
And Aramis, you may know the answer since you've been the recipient of some of this. For example, and I mentioned this to you, Dr. Ruzycki, when I first met you in Gainesville, I started a organization called the Community Education Alliance 10 years ago. I started it at Broward schools. Bureaucracy kind of guided me to take it to my church, New Mount Olive Baptist Church. There's a camp, 6-week camp going on right now. And by the time I came back, our CEO had already kind of put together the curriculum for this particular summer. But I told both my wife, who's the chairman of the board, as well as the CEO, that I want them to see this podcast to understand what's available for next year. And it doesn't have to wait to the summer. We can do something in the interim. Do we have to go through the schools in order to the school district in order to do it? Or do you do work with other 501c3s out there?
Sure. We work with boys and girls clubs in some districts. We've worked with church groups in other districts. We work with charter schools. We work with private schools. We believe that all students should have access to high quality programming. So we are completely open. All our materials are CC share alike, non-commercial. So as long as people don't try to sell our work, we're happy to share it widely and make it more available to more students. What we need are partners that can help uh, be able to run these programs and have the infrastructure. For example, during COVID, districts were flush with money. They had a lot of money. We ran a lot of programs. And now that that money has gone away, there are districts where they just don't have the funding. They don't even have funding for summer school for their students. And so that's when we reach out to other partners, like it's Boys and Girls Club available, is there a
YMCA's.
urban league? Yeah, what's available within the area and what are the needs to serve the students?
I have a relationship with the uh, YMCA of South Florida. They honored me earlier this year, and we've come together to see how they can help with the CEA, my entity. But I think there's just great opportunity there. They have huge camps. I think somewhere around 1,800 kids across all of their YMCA campuses, if you will. Um, this type of training I don't think is being done in many places. I think it's something you're doing is really unique, cutting edge, and very valuable toward our race, I should say, to get these kids up to speed to be competitive in society. Because AI is going to keep playing, in my humble, uneducated opinion, a greater role in what we do. And those that get it are going to excel. Those that don't and are afraid of it are going to have challenges. And we want to remove those barriers.
Yeah, and we want to provide programs to them that bring them high quality materials that bring them up in their knowledge, for math and science so that they can, there's so much gatekeeping that goes on in schools. And so we need to make sure that our students aren't just having fun, but they become competitive.
Yeah.
Because we know it is a competitive process. And so we need to present students with high quality materials. And I feel like that is something that we can provide to students within our partnerships. We need partners who are able to work within their communities. For example, we have a donor in Brevard, the Defabach Foundation, and they fund just for one school. Well, that's great. That creates an opportunity within that community, and that's great for us, right? That takes the burden off the school. And those students are every year they come back, right? Like that's building the pipeline at that school. So donors sometimes say, "Oh, but I don't want to give too much, right? The market's unsure." But you just reach out and do something for your community, just like you've done, and I think it can make a world of difference for those students.
How is AI? I know, is it the Lassinger Center? Is it the Lassinger Center at the University of Florida? I spoke with a couple of people a year or two there, and they were talking about how there was an AI feature that helped the kids read, and they started it in Duval County at two or three schools, and it was so effective until Duval asked, "Could you do it in all of our schools?" And they were trying to pass it through the state, through the school systems. There was some resistance because they wanted to take it out into Belglade, and Palm Beach County said no, which is a part of the issue that I raised. Belglade is obviously a poor Black community.
That's right. And
And
these systems are collecting data on students, right?
Yeah, and so how is this helping kids? Is any aspect of what you're doing helping kids learn how to read?
Yeah, well, reading is complicated, and I think reading is one of the most complicated subjects we can think about. And because it takes a highly skilled teacher to teach reading well, it's natural to think that maybe a computer could help us with this area. And there are uses where computers can, just like it's great, you can read to a dog and it helps your reading. But a computer can listen to you and check your fluency, right? And your pitch and tone. And so, but does that have to be AI? Could it be more rules-based and could it not necessarily collect data? So I think there are things to think about, and I think AI has a place in school with guardrails, but then we have to ensure, and I mean, honestly, people say, oh, you have to have trust but verify. We need to trust but verify what data is being collected on students, right? Especially in our vulnerable communities.
And that's, you've mentioned that a couple of times. How do we verify what the data that's being collected?
Well, there are some agencies, like there's a consortia called One Ed Tech. It's an international consortia, and it came out of like educational literacy, and they kind of vet technology providers, and technology providers can get like a little certificate of good behavior in a way for their data. But the biggest tech giants that are trying to get into schools are not members of One Ed Tech. And so I think it depends what you're making, who you talk to, and how you credential that. And schools should be holding, before they go to a big tech provider to allow tech into the classroom, it should be vetted through like a third party and get like a certificate of good behavior before it's allowed into schools. But people don't want to be behind the ball on adoption, and sometimes these certificates can take time. But I do think districts and schools should be a little more circumspect about data, because once a data leak occurs, you can't go backwards. And once harm is done to a student because you're telling me that student can't read because a computer says that, I think we have to rethink the way we're approaching the problem.
You may have just touched upon what I was going to say. What's the risk? What's the, this sounds a little elementary, but what is the risk of them collecting the data?
Well, there's no question that they're collecting the data. The issue is, what are they doing with the data, right? And who holds the data, and where the data is stored, and whether that data could be breached, and what they're using that data for later on. So you have Siri, and most people have Alexa, and that those tools have been collecting data on people for years, ever since the beginning. Amazon has one of the largest databases of human voices ever. What do they do with that data? Right? Like, they have all your data. They know what you want to buy. They know when you buy it. They know when you run out of bananas, right? Like, what are they doing with it now? Not much, but what might they do with it later? We don't know,
Yeah.
right? So, the idea of the government having a large database, okay, that's kind of a good idea, but kind of a really bad idea. The idea of these databases on our children and our vulnerable populations. So, for example, there was data collected in studies about Native American persons and health issues, right? And then, unbeknownst to the people who had their data collected, they consented for the data to be collected for the study, but then later on, their data was sold without their permission. So,
Yeah.
who owned that data, right? Like, right? And so that data went outside of what its intended original purpose is. And so who owns the original IP on their own data? And this is something that hasn't been well established in law, and probably should be established, just like these generative AIs that are training on all this artwork. Well, did you see the other day that both Disney and Universal are suing Midjourney, which is an art generator, for copyright violations? And people have been trying to sue Midjourney for years, but they've been small people. But now all of a sudden, Disney and Universal are suing Midjourney for stealing their copyright, and maybe there'll be some laws that come out of that now after the fact. But what are we going to do? So those are big companies fighting over art. But a child, right, is not going to be if I get tagged as a low reader, if I get tagged as something, that's going to be in that system, right? That's like the sentencing computers, right, that do sentencing, and they're looking at things like your zip code and where you live. A child can't help where they live. Does that make
Right.
them a criminal? Not automatically. And so there always needs to be a human in the loop that helps the machine temper its algorithmic judgments. And who does that in schools with children? That's, I think, an open question.
That is in and of itself just a conversation, because for decades there have been studies that if kids are not reading on level at third grade, then they use that data for jails and how many beds they're going to need.
That's right.
The danger of collecting that data through a program that on the one hand you think it's helping, But on this other hand, it's data that could certainly be utilized for abuse and ill will. Just something we need to think about. One of the programs you have is Smart Girls. Tell us about Smart Girls.
So Smart Girls was a program that I designed when I was a postdoc out in Washington with the American Association of University Women. And so I worked as a postdoc at the University of Washington doing scientific research, but I also worked as a master teacher for the Seattle public school system, working with schools there to improve physics and computer science education. And one of the things we saw was they had a large populations of immigrant students from Somalia, from the Caribbean, and also from like the islands, Pacific islands. And so these students were behind in many of their schooling, not being, first language students. And we created a middle school program that was a tiered passive mentoring program where college students who were computer science majors or STEM majors would work with us, and we would go to a middle school. We would find a female teacher who maybe needed some mentoring. Her students weren't doing so well in STEM. And then we would bring them these engaging after school STEM programs, kind of like GGEE. And the college students would mentor high school students who would mentor the middle school students. And then I would be there. We would mentor the teacher in being able to do these things. It worked really well, but then we would go out at the end of the day and there'd be all these little brothers out in the hallway waiting for their sisters and asking why they couldn't join the club. So we actually switched it over to Smart Girls and Smart Boys at the same time.
That's awesome. I saw that just doing some research. We're heading toward the end, unfortunately, time-wise. I want to give each of you, starting with Hermes and then Dr. Ruzycki, have you to close. What message should we be sending out to our society in general, the state of Florida, Broward County, as to the opportunity we have with AI to strengthen the education of our students and citizens?
Yeah. So thank you for that question, and thank you for this great podcast. I've been learning a lot every time I listen to your podcast and to Dr. Ruzycki. I learn a lot. So thank you for that. What I would say is the future is very bright, in my opinion, with AI. When you go back and look at the Industrial Revolution, people were afraid, and then we came out of it much improved. Same thing with the computer revolution, the internet revolution, the phone revolution, and now with the AI revolution. I'm very positive about that. So I want everybody to think positive about this, because society goes through these cycles and we just become better. So I'm very positive about it, but not be naive. We have to protect our privacy. We have to protect our data, just like Dr. Ruzycki said in very articulate manner in here. And what I would say to legislators, for example, is to you said about the digital divide. Both of you said about the digital divide. One of the things I find that people learn about AI is in their intention, in their needs, right? So if I have a need, for example, to find transportation from point A to point B, and if the tool, everybody got a phone today, if we can say to those technology companies, use this opportunity to teach people about how AI can help them get there better, faster, cheaper, then we'll start showing people how AI works, how AI can help them in those intentions, and you build that knowledge, because that's how people work. They will learn based on their needs, So that would be one way, potentially, of doing this. And then to students is keep on growing in AI, use AI in every aspect of your life. And I had a debate student, you talked about debate and how great the debate program Broward County Public Schools has, that he said, I'm very concerned about AI creating degenerative thinking. That was his word. And everybody stopped the moment he said that, because he said, I don't want to lose my ability to think. And that is such a gift we all have, right? And I love that because it made us all pause. And we teachers have been very afraid of AI being this conduit for, not doing the work, for cheating and etc. And what we have found also again at Broward County is that if we get the students to use AI as an aid and then have them teach what they have learned, present, teach to others, then the AI is not going to be sitting there and teaching. They have to use their brain for it. So that is a way that we have kind of used to force the student to use AI to better their product, but not to substitute their product. So I guess the point being is that maybe legislators can help get tech companies to intention-based use of AI to teach AI to the larger population, because everybody, for example, got a phone, a computer, a phone everybody just about has. And for students in schools and teachers to use AI in effective ways to help the student, not to replace. And presentations is one way of doing that.
Excellent. And Dr. Ruzycki, you get the last word. Where are we headed with this?
I think we're headed into, I think the analogy of the Industrial Revolution is appropriate. However, when we talk about the Industrial Revolution, it moved us forward, but it harmed a lot of people. And this is why, there were many people who worked excessive hours in factories. They had children working in factories. People were harmed by the machines. That's exactly where we are today. Did we come out better? We did, but we needed rules and guidance and policy around these new tools that were coming out in order to keep our people safe. And this is what I think we need to harken back to. And this is why we need to have these broad conversations with lawyers and with policymakers, people who have the power and the influence. The United States is rolling back all its AI regulations right now. And so who's going to teach us? Can we trust the tech companies to be unbiased when they teach us? We cannot. Right. Can AI help our students? I do believe it can. I'm like Hermes. Information is not knowledge, but unless we're teaching students the intellectual act of scaffolding information into knowledge, then we're not doing our job as teachers, and then that's fine if AI takes over. So we need to understand the power of a teacher to transform information into knowledge and strengthen teachers' ability to do that for their students.
I'm going to end on that note and give thanks to both of you. I'm not the most tech guy, but it's so interesting for me to hear it. That's why I wanted to invite both of you. This will not be our last conversation. It's the opening of what I think is going to be an ongoing dialogue. I truly appreciate all the work you all are doing. You're making a difference in so many students' lives at every level, and for that you should feel good. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for your time, and thanks for your service to the state and to Broward County.
The law firm of Halitzer, Pedersen Schwam is a proud sponsor of the Can We Talk 360 podcast. Our firm handles medical malpractice, wrongful death, and catastrophic personal injury litigation. We pride ourselves in being advocates for justice on behalf of those who have been seriously injured. For decades, we've taken the lead in making your case our priority. It's who we are. It's who we'll always be. Halitzer, Pedersen Schwam. Serious injuries, proven results.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Can We Talk 360. I sincerely hope that you were inspired to seize this moment in time and take real action towards change. Remember, all change begins with a conversation. Be sure to tune in every month for more fascinating discussions and motivational food for the soul. Please share with your friends, family, and colleagues. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Can We Talk 360, and visit us on the web at www.canwetalk360.com.